Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Let's Go Racing with David Starr, episode number 84. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we'll recap the weekend that was at Texas Motor Speedway. Plus, we'll look ahead to Talladega, as it should be an exciting one. David Starr and Dominic Aragon will join me in just one moment from right now. Before we do that, today's show is presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year in David's 08 Ford Mustang, and we want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fancy your tickets to every NASCAR, Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. David Starr joins us right now. David, a fun weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. We were all there having a good time. And on the Cup side, a win for Tyler Reddick, his third of 2022.
Man, it was a great weekend. I saw a lot of great friends, and seemed like the racing was crazy. The racing was nuts, but it was just a great week with all the Connectus people there, and all the sponsors we had there, and man, just always a fun weekend. Wish our racing team, our SS Greenlight and our 08 Ford Mustang, would have had a better luck. It seemed like 2022, man, it's just been a challenging year for us. It seemed like we can't catch a break. A little unlucky there, have been for a while, but man, all in all, both races were just they were crazy, man, just exciting and nuts. And you didn't expect what we saw Sunday afternoon. And man, after my tire blew out and I hit the wall Saturday afternoon in the Xfinity race, man, it was just I've never seen so many crashed up race cars in the garage, but man, it was an exciting weekend.
Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com joins us as well. Dom, you were there with us this weekend. We had a great time there at Texas, and Sunday was a wild day with a Tyler Reddick there coming out on top.
Absolutely crazy race weekend with no rain in the forecast. We got a little bit of a delay, but that was okay. We got the race in, but man, some tire issues for a lot of teams. But all in all, it was a great weekend and a lot of fun to see both of you. And Tyler was a lot of fun to hang out with, as we heard on the show last week, fans asking if David felt like this was his homecoming. We hung out with the homecoming king.
Yeah.
It was cool, guys. Everywhere we go at that track, people stop us, recognize us, and supporting this show everywhere. We do it for the fans. We do it because of you guys, and it's humbling. It's awesome, isn't it, David? Just see the support we get, everywhere we go, and Texas Motor Speedway. People did not disappoint again.
No doubt about it, man. People love our podcasts. You guys do a great job, and we try to bring them in some behind the scene information and stuff, share some of our knowledge and share some great stories. And man, it's cool to see that people are tuning into our podcast. It's pretty awesome. Like you said, Tyler, it's humbling. It's amazing, but you and Dominic, man, y'all do a heck of a job, dude. It's awesome.
Right. We're glad to do it. Let's talk about this weekend at Texas with Tyler Reddick getting that win. He's out of the playoff, but a third win on the season for him. His future at RCR is unknown. And, he gets this done, a career year for him. What a statement by Tyler Reddick, David, that even with, you could argue that he has literally nothing to race for, right? Not in the playoff. He's not coming back to that car next year. There's conflict with him and RCR, and he puts all of that aside to go out there and dominate the end of the race and get that win like that. To me, that spoke volumes of Tyler Reddick and how he's not giving up, how hard he's working still to win races with this race team here.
Dude, I don't know. Tyler, Dominic, and Tyler, you guys, a racer's a racer, man. No matter what the circumstances of of your contract, of your racing team. Man, when you climb inside that race car and they drop that green flag, there's only one thing on our minds. That's go to the front and try to win a race, and, and man, no different from all our stars in NASCAR Cup racing. I mean, Tyler Reddick, you hear a lot of different rumblings and rumors. We don't know if it's factuals or not, but man, that kid's been on fire all year long. He's fast every week, lots of speed, drives the wheels off those race cars. I don't know if he has 2 or 3 Xfinity championships, but man, just one of the sport's future great star. I mean, he's we're going to see Tyler Reddick winning lots more races and championships. And excuse me, man, you don't know what the situation is going on over there at Richard Childress Racing, but man, I don't know what's going on, but they got fast race cars. They're winning races, and man, if there's any truth to all these rumors that we hear, I mean, winning races has to fix a lot of things. I don't know, what his future looks like next year, what they're doing, but I do know that, Toyota's got to be just tickled pink. I mean, you just so excited that the future to have Tyler Reddick come over to a Toyota with 2311 in 2024, man, they got to be so excited and can't wait until that year gets here because, man, I mean, they lost Kyle Busch, but man, gaining Tyler Reddick and see what he's done this year is amazing. Like I said, I think he's going to be multiple championship race car driver in the Cup Series. And, but man, it's exciting. Then you look at Kyle Busch. I mean, had some more bad luck at Texas this week, lost a right rear tire, put him in the wall, put him out of the race early in the race. He was disappointed, but you got to be thinking and knowing that Kyle Busch sees what that A car is doing at Richard Childress Racing. He's got to be excited about the future to see the car he's going to step off into the next, 2023 and beyond is dominating races. So it's kind of interesting how it's all playing out in front of us.
So with that said, along those same lines, Dom, I'll toss to you. We see what Tyler Reddick's doing and how well he's racing, even out of the playoffs to winning races, even, for a team that he's not going to be with in the future. He's still giving his best and winning races and how well they're doing. Kyle Busch, we know his history, multiple-time champion. He's out of the playoff and everything, but still one of the best to ever do it in the sport. Essentially, this is basically a trade, right? I mean, between Chevy and Toyota here of trading, marquee drivers. Chevy loses Tyler Reddick, but gains Kyle Busch. Toyota gets, Kyle Busch, or Toyota loses Kyle Busch, gains Tyler Reddick. Who wins the trade? We talk about that in other sports all the time. At the end of the day, who do you think is going to come out on top on the better end? Is it Toyota getting Tyler Reddick, or is it Chevrolet getting Kyle Busch? Who would you rather have if you were a manufacturer or a car owner, Dominic?
Man, great question. And David, I'd love your insight on this too, but I think it's kind of one of those double-edged sword questions that has 2 answers. If you look in the short term, definitely Richard Childress is your big winner. Kyle Busch and Chevrolet, you have an instant proven winner, a multi-champion taking over that 8 car. But when you look at the long-term effect of this, Tyler Reddick is the younger driver. And we know that time is undefeated. As time rolls on, drivers step away, drivers retire. Father Time is undefeated. Tyler Reddick has a lot more, in theory, time on his side. So in the long term, I would say Toyota 2311 Racing have won. They have hit it out of the park with Tyler Reddick, certainly a future superstar in our Cup Series.
What about you, David? Who wins this trade? Is it Toyota or is it Chevy?
Well, I kind of agree with Dominic. Short term, I think I think right now Chevy's, they're excited about Kyle Busch, and like I remember David Wilson with Toyota Racing said, man, we don't want to have to compete against a pissed off Kyle Busch, and to see what Richard Childress Racing, what Hendricks has done, Hendrick Motorsports, and what the Chevys have done this year, and how dominant, and for Tyler Reddick to win 3 races, I mean, he's fast week in and week out. The Richard Childress Racing cars, their organization, to me, looks like a championship caliber team, even though Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon won't be part of that championship race at Phoenix. But man, to plug in one of the all-time best drivers, I mean, amazing, and then to see what Tyler Reddick has done in his short career in NASCAR already, man, Toyota's just so excited, I mean, to know that they're going to have Ty Gibbs, Tyler Reddick, those two guys it looks like those two guys are going to be their future, I mean, how can you not be excited about those two guys, So I don't, I think short term, there's a winner short term. There's also a winner on the long term side of it. But man, it looks like it's kind of interesting to watch it all play out in front of us. But I think they're all going to be winners. It's all going to work out for everybody.
Okay, so maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I like what both of you had to say, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'll disagree based on some numbers. I know Dominic's the numbers guy around here, but here's what I would point to. Last 3 years, Kyle Busch has won 4 Cup races. In the last year, Tyler Reddick has won 3. Tyler Reddick's younger. The sky is the limit. Kyle Busch, his best driving days might be behind him, quite frankly. And more time with Tyler Reddick, as we mentioned, the age thing. I personally would rather have Tyler Reddick right now. I know that he still has to take the next step for competing for championships, but I think he's well on his way, quite frankly, Dom.
Man, and he's won championships under this format in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's a 2-time champion. He's won with 2 different teams, JRM in 2018 or Childress in 2019. So Reddick knows how to get it done. I think that championship, that professionalism is there. Time is on his side. And that's why I think long-term, the more time plays out, Tyler Reddick is going to come out as the clear winner. And Toyota 2311 Racing will be your big winners on this. It's short-term, right? Kind of like when Peyton Manning went to Denver to put football out there. Short-term. We knew that was going to be a short-term thing, but delivered a championship. Who's not to say Kyle Busch could go and deliver a championship for Richard Childress Racing? It certainly could.
Doesn't this is staying even in the NASCAR world? It kind of reminds me of that whole Matt Kenseth, Joey Logano thing.
Oh, big time. When Kenseth went over to Gibbs and automatically won 7 races in 2013, and then Logano was finding success at Team Penske right away. Logano's won every year since he has joined Team Penske in 2013, and Kenseth lasted, 5 seasons at Joe Gibbs Racing? So it was a short-term deal, but Joe Gibbs Racing got to reap the benefits of that.
Right. That's a very good point. So with that, the playoff picture now where things stand, and we've had a little bit of a shakeup in the playoff standings since Sunday with William Byron being deducted 25 points with his altercation there with Denny Hamlin. So now your point standings as they sit: Logano, Chastain, Larson, Blaney, Hamlin, Suarez, Elliott, and Briscoe are your top 8. On the outside looking in, Cindric, Byron, Bell, and Bowman are the other 4 on the outside looking in with 2 races to go in this round. And Dom, there's a bit of separation too. Joey Logano has a marginal lead above Alex Bowman, who has that number 12 spot right now. It's there was some separation in the point standings this week.
Definitely. And Logano, okay, you make up to 59 points in a single Cup Series race based on how stage points work and how points work. He's got 56 points over Alex Bowman, pretty much an entire race lead, 12 points over Ross Chastain, who's sitting next in points. So Logano's sitting pretty good heading into Talladega. And we know how crazy Talladega has been over the years. And the fact that it's in the middle of this round and not the end of the round, anything can happen. And guys, if you remember a few years back, it was I think the 2014 or 2015 race where the Joe Gibbs guys, they had enough points to advance to the next round where they just kind of hung around and finished low 20s, high 30s were not factors. We won't see that Sunday. It's going to be a lot of Dyson and a lot of grinding on the racetrack. And then we're going to have the next at the Roval the next week. This round is super exciting, and Talladega is going to put some exciting racing on.
Yeah, I think so. I think Talladega will be really good. David, before we preview Talladega and get into all that, what do you think of the playoff picture right now, where things stand?
Man, it's it's interesting, a little surprised at how well that Joey Logano's doing. He's been a little bit of a sleeper. He hasn't been the guy that you hear people talking about who's favorite, what teams are favorite, what drivers are favorite. His name is not the first one you hear. But man, he's chipping away at it little by little, and man, he didn't win the race Sunday, but he was right there. I think he finished second. Am I right? Did he finish second in the race?
I believe so. Isn't that correct now?
Yes, second place.
Yeah, I mean, you can't never count out Joey Logano and that organization, that Roger Penske organization, and it's just interesting. I'm surprised by having right now two Hendrick Motorsports cars towards the bottom of that list. So it's just kind of interesting how it's playing out. Chase Elliott, where's Chase at?
He's seventh. He's about 11 points ahead of the cutoff right now.
We talked a lot over the last month or month and a half about Chase Elliott being the favorite, man, and just looking at it right now, I don't really see it. You know what I'm saying? It ain't. There's been others that are running a lot better than he has here lately. Since the playoffs have started, right before the playoffs. But every week it's just nail biters, and it's kind of interesting to watch it all play out. But man, anything's possible. But definitely Joey Logano to me is one of the favorites right now.
Yeah, Joey Logano there, the second place finish he had last week, picked up 46 points. It kind of reminds me, Dom, of these old school racers that point raced a lot. I mean, Joey Logano hasn't done anything flashy this year, only 2 wins, but he's been consistent up front there, kind of sneaky of some sorts here. I mean, this feels like a Mark Martin or Rusty Wallace type of season we're seeing from Joey here.
There you go. Not a lot of wins, but laps led at some of these different tracks. A lot of top 5 finishes, more top 10 finishes than not. And in that parity this year, it's interesting to see that we have seen those drivers rise to the top. And we did see that with Chase Elliott over the summer. But if we're talking the entire season, I think it's guys like Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson that have had those quieter years. They're not leading as many laps as some of these other guys, but they're still running up front, and they're up front when it counts.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. Chase Elliott, David, you mentioned in the first race of the playoff, had a DNF, finished 36th, and then we see here at Texas another DNF. And this time finishes 32nd. Any concern with Chase or that Hendrick Motorsports camp? I mean, sure they've had some bad luck and all, but I mean, for a team that were the favorites, that had championship aspirations here, they've had some things that just haven't gone their way the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, just it's just racing, man. I know he's been a favorite. I mean, the team knows they had a lot of momentum coming into the championship, when the playoffs started. But man, it just seems like all the hurdles and all the bumps in the road they're having to deal with, and it's hadn't turned out like we all thought it would for Chase. But you got to remember Chase Elliott, former champion. It is Hendrick Motorsports, and man, any given weekend, this weekend in Talladega or at the Roval, you could easily see Chase Elliott, the number 9 car, back in victory lane. That's how good they are. But up until this point, a little surprised by the bad luck and a lot of hurdles that they've had to kind of work through. And seeing him run so good Sunday and then having a tire issue, just bad luck again. And so it's interesting to see. I think he'll be a threat this weekend at Talladega. And, Chase Elliott's always a threat at the road courses, and the Roval's coming up after Talladega. So, I think everybody's concerned They might not show it, but it just it hadn't played out like they thought it would be. But it's going to be interesting to see how the last two races play out, the next two races.
Yeah, for sure. Moving ahead to Talladega, Dom, first off, before even the race itself, realistically, a whole question that should be thrown out there is if this race is even going to happen or not with the hurricane. Are we calling it Ian or Ian?
Ian, I think.
Ian.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hurricane Ian is on the way, and I'm no meteorologist, but I've worked in news, and this thing does not look good. And there will be a lot of rains and things that fall after it. And they're already talking about, it's not just the race either. I mean, the Bucks versus Chiefs football game on Sunday night possibly could not happen. I mean, several things that could occur. I hope you have refundable tickets, my friends, because it is not looking good of the chances of getting the Cup or Xfinity races in this weekend. And in the words of Bob Pockris, Talladega, Dominic, does not have lights.
Talladega does not have night. Like, exactly, no lights. They have a campground called Talladega Nights, but that's off campus. That's a whole different story. Guys, I was looking forward to this race. And personally, the personal side of me, of course, would love to see this get in. Planning on being there with our Jonathan Feld to go cover the Cup race in the Yellowwood 500 on Sunday. But there's just no talent right now. And very fascinating the fact that, right, as a civilization, we're able to do so many cool and innovative things, but it's so hard that weather tends to be one of the weaknesses of humanity. We don't even really know how this thing's going to shape out over the next few days, but whatever that path this hurricane takes and whatever it does, we are keeping everybody in our thoughts and prayers with it and anybody that will be affected. And we do know that Talladega has opened up their campground sites on some sections to relief efforts.
Yeah, and that's good to see. And David, I mean, you're one of these competitors that's directly affected by this. What kind of game plan do you and some of these other drivers and teams have going into this weekend, knowing that there's a decent chance that there won't be any track activity, that we might have to push this thing to Monday or Tuesday or hell, even try to fit this in later in the next few weeks? I mean, who knows? There's a lot of rain on the way here.
Yeah, NASCAR does a great job. You just feel bad for our great fans that buy the tickets and who come to Talladega and enjoy the atmosphere, the party atmosphere. I mean, it's just you very passionate fans in that part of the country. And man, everybody knows the stories and the stories we've heard over the years about Talladega. But I hate it for our great fans. You know what I mean? These people look forward to going to Talladega, having just a great weekend. And man, last time we were at Talladega earlier this year, man, the stands were incredible. It looked like it was sold out, and it might have been. I just hate it for the people for the fans that are coming, and for them to have to deal with maybe a chance that it might rain and push it in, into late Sunday afternoon or Monday sometime, and like you said, even Tuesday. But not so much worried about our teams and competitors. I mean, we're used to this kind of stuff, really. We're dealing with weather. We're all ready to race whenever it dries up and we can do it. But, man, I feel bad for the people in Florida. Being from Houston, Texas, growing up in Houston, Texas, I've been through a lot of hurricanes and the destruction and the flooding and just all the natural disasters that a hurricane brings with it, the tornadoes and loss of power and just the erosions of the beaches. I mean, it's just on and on and on. You just hate to see that happen in the United States. And man, we do so much racing in Florida. There's a lot of great short tracks and Daytona and obviously Miami Homestead, but man, a lot of great friends over there in the Tampa area. You just hate to see anybody having to go through what's fixing to happen, and if a race gets rained out on Saturday, we got to do it Monday. Compared to what the people in Florida are going to have to deal with, it really no big deal. You know what I'm saying? I hate it for the fans who are going to be there at Talladega. Hopefully they can all stay, but y'all know as well as I do, so I'm going to have to get back home and go to work. But you know, a lot of emotions going into this weekend, a lot of unknowns. I just hope that hurricane, you know, it doesn't leave too much destruction behind it as it's passing through.
Tell me this, David, strategy wise, of when you have the weather factor, and we've seen just last year, Bubba Wallace won the Cup race at Talladega with it being rain shortened and everything. Are you or your crew chief, are you guys looking at all those possibilities going into the weekend of when a race could be stopped or what those things look like, you know, trying to get to the halfway point? I mean, how much prep goes in ahead of time of factoring the weather involvement to race strategy going in?
You know, it's a great question. You know, we really talked about it this week. Me and Jason Miller, we haven't talked about the weather. You know, we're just preparing for you know, a normal Xfinity Talladega race, you know, and the challenges we have. We talk about strategies, our setup, you know, how we want the car to be trimmed out, and just, you know, just typical race stuff that we discuss. We have not talked about weather yet, you know, and sometimes the night before or the morning of, when we know there's weather in the area, or we know that the weather's coming, then, you know, we'll kind of have a plan, you know what I mean? But man, it's hard, you know, Daytona and Talladega, great races, love racing them. And, you know, it's just the way these races play out. It actually, a team like SS Green Light and a lot of other competitors that I race against that might not have an opportunity to win week in and week out. We go to Talladega and Daytona and we're equal like everybody else, you know what I mean? So we want to run the whole race and try to be there at the end, and, you know, and see a new winner, a new team win a race this year, you know? So, you know, we have not discussed the weather. And like I said, when we have in the past, it's been the night before of the day of the race, you know what I mean? And sometimes, as you guys know, weather just pops up, you know, and,
Right.
you know, you're just lying on your spotter and your crew chief to try to make the right decisions. You know, we've seen these races, you know, you get halfway through it, somebody makes a decision not to pit, and everybody else pits. And next thing you know, the skies open up, man, it rains and rains. And finally NASCAR calls a race and we got us a new winner. But at the end of the day, you know, the record books show, I mean, when you win a race, you win a race, however you do it, you know. And so it's kind of interesting how all that plays out. But to answer your question, we have not talked about the weather so far.
And with that, looking ahead to the race itself, Dom, I mean, so many names that potentially could win this race on a Sunday. It seems like the Fords have been really fast on the super speedways this year, but I mean, you go back Daytona just a couple weeks ago, and Austin Dillon had the best car, and that Chevrolet was right up there. Another RCR car, teammate of Tyler Reddick there. Who are some of the names that you're watching for this weekend in Talladega?
You're right. So there's something about the blue ovals at super speedway races this year. Brad Keselowski in the 6 car, Chris Buescher, or should I say Christopher Buescher with the RFK racing team. They have looked really strong as of late. And I feel like super speedway racing could play into that this weekend as well. I think any of your playoff guys, the Trackhouse guys, we saw Ross Chastain win this race in April. Trackhouse looked really good. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, a lot of the Chevy guys. I'm not sure about the Toyota camp. I guess the jury will have to be remaining to be seen for this weekend, but I don't know. I think we're going to see a really good race, and God, I just hope we have a clean, fun 500-mile race, and hope we can get it on Sunday.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so. And with the playoff factor and all this, David, we've seen, as Dominic mentioned earlier, in the past, this has been an elimination race for the playoff. Now, with this year being the second race, and then having a race after it to kind of redeem yourself here. If you were in this situation, David, what would you like better? The win or go home excitement of it being the last race, or do you like this scenario where teams kind of have a chance to recover and rebound next week for another shot to move on?
Man, I kind of like having a chance to rebound and recover, you know. Y'all know how Daytona and Talladega is. And, you know, looking back at Daytona, the twin 125s to crank up our season this year. I mean, you look at what Chris Buescher and what Brad Keselowski done. They won both those races, you know. And and looking at the Daytona race not too long ago when they were coming down to the end and went to turn one, and just a freak thing. A shower happened just at the last minute. Denny Hamlin and I forgot who was leading drove off into turn one, and man, it almost wrecked every car out there. So it's kind of hard to pick a favorite for this week. But like Dominic was saying, man, it's going to be a very competitive race. Look at Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Michael McDowell. I mean, you just never know how it's going to play out. You could have a Cinderella story where, somebody we're not used to seeing win Talladega, and it's just it's a fun race, but I'm kind of Tyler, I'm kind of excited and glad to see them for Talladega not to be the cutoff line for the, it's just because, man, there's just so much luck involved, and you just never know what's going to happen. It's kind of cool that you get to reload and go back after it, get one more shot to advance, instead of it just being Talladega, if that makes sense.
Right. Last question, and then we'll move on to our news and notes segment here, David. Let me ask you this. I think one of the most iconic things about Talladega is it's not your traditional start-finish line, that you still have a whole other turn before you get to that start-finish line there. How different is that for a driver? Is your instinct to think, oh, yeah, I'm at the center of the grandstand, I'm at the start-finish line, or do you know that going in ahead of time? Is that, driven in your head that you still have another turn to go to get there?
But man, y'all, my view, I love my view, and there's a lot of things that happen from coming off turn 4. When you come off turn 4 at Daytona or Talladega, but we're speaking about Talladega here and where the start finish line is, man, when you come off turn 4, you think somebody's going to win, but man, it's a long way down to that start finish line. And when you come through that big tri-oval, man, y'all have seen it like I have, and I've benefited from the start finish line being, further down, like almost getting down into turn 1. I benefit, but over the years, I also lost lots of spots, thinking I was going to have a great finish, and just the way the draft works and who had energy, what line had energy, and who didn't, and I mean, it's just so exciting. If you look at the tri-oval to the start finish line, man, over the years, all the different types of racing, it's so exciting, and if the start finish line could be at a traditional spot there at Talladega, so many other would have had more wins, you know what I mean? A lot changes through the tri-oval all the way to the start finish line. It's just amazing. And, like I said, some people have benefited from that start finish line being further down the racetrack, and other people have benefited, and other people have not benefited, you know what I mean? But it's definitely exciting for the racers, the fans watching it, and the people watching it on television.
Now, I love the extended of past the tri-oval of having the start finish line there, but I hate the double yellow line. I hate that at Daytona and Talladega. It'd be so much more exciting. It would add a whole nother notch if we got rid of the double yellow line.
It would, but I think just because it's such a safety issue, I believe that rule came into play either in the late 90s or the early 2000s, because there were just so many drivers diving down there in some of the Winston Cup races and just creating a hazard potential for some of the other drivers coming back up on the track, causing crashes. Dave, I think you would definitely remember more on this than I would, but I believe there were a few crashes with the drivers coming back from the apron back onto the racing surface that did cause some crashes, which led to NASCAR ultimately changing that rule.
Yeah, Tyler, I understand you not liking it, but man, it's definitely a rule that was needed when they implemented it. And, I think it's a great rule all these years later. It just keeps, things are going to happen. The big ones are going to happen at Talladega and Daytona. You can't ever get rid of that. But it just, I think from a safety standpoint, it eliminates a lot of the risk if that rule wasn't in place. You know what I mean? Because, if you took away the double double yellow line or double white line, whatever it is, double yellow line, I think we'd see a lot more bigger wrecks, you know what I mean? And mistakes and just, it's a safety hazard. But anyway, I think it's a great rule when they implemented it, and I think it is still today.
All right, time for our news and notes segment in a moment. Today's show is presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter is the official ticket resale marketplace of Worldwide Technology Raceway, where David won in 2004. Fans can also get tickets to any type of event, including sports, concerts, and theater productions. TicketSmarter is committing to helping those in need by donating $1 from every transaction to various charity organizations. Head over to TicketSmarter.com to find tickets for upcoming events. That's TicketSmarter.com. Dollar Aragon standing by with this week's news and notes. Dom, where shall we get started?
Well, let's get started with some penalties that NASCAR handed down on Tuesday, September 26th. The two Cup Series drivers from remnants of the Texas Motor Speedway Cup Series race, William Byron and both him and Ty Gibbs, were penalized for incidents on track NASCAR deemed were violations of members' code of conduct. So Ty Gibbs was nabbed with a I'm quoting from the NASCAR rulebook here, retaliatory vehicle contact on pit road. And with an incident on Ty Dillon, fined $75,000, and the number 23 team was docked 25 owners points, while William Byron, with his penalty as well from the NASCAR rulebook, vehicle contact during a caution period. That was the incident with Denny Hamlin, stage 3. Byron was docked $50,000 and a loss of 25 driver's points and 25 owners points, which we know dropped him from 3rd to 9th now in the NASCAR playoff grid.
How about that? An eventful weekend there, David. That incident with Byron and Hamlin, NASCAR officials didn't even see it at the time.
Man, that's what I heard, and it was kind of when it was happening, we were watching that really. Those two guys were racing hard coming off turn 2. And from our buddy Mark Tate's condo, where me and Dominic were watching the race from, coming off turn 2, I really thought that William Byron's car, he got real tight off of 2. And, it was hard to tell what happened, but, it looked like Denny Hamlin had hit him, and it kind of, pushed him up into the wall. But after watching some replays and stuff, I don't believe Denny hit Byron's car, and Byron just got tight, went up there and brushed the wall. And I don't remember what the caution was for. Caution came out 3, 4, 5, 6 laps later. And that's when we see the incident of William Byron, letting Denny know how much he appreciated that, and not knowing that Denny didn't hit him. It was kind of exciting to watch it play out in front of us, because William spun him out, and to see Denny kind of retaliating under caution, trying to spin out William Byron, and didn't really successfully accomplish what he was trying to do. But you could see that there was definitely tempers were flaring on the racetrack, and to see how it all played out, and it was kind of interesting that I had heard that, Denny was complaining after race. That was amazing that he could get spun out under caution, and NASCAR didn't take any actions at the time, and then learned later on that they didn't see it happen. And then to see today, hearing from you guys, I didn't even know that a penalty was handed out. I mean, that's a pretty stout penalty for these playoff drivers. You know what I mean? Right now, I wouldn't want to lose 25 points or have a $50,000 fine. I mean, 25 driver owner points, that's big right now, And then to talk about the other incident was Ty Gibbs. I never even knew that happened in the race. That was news to me, and I'm hearing y'all talk about it. I didn't even know, that Ty Dillon had slammed somebody's door or slammed into a side of somebody else's car. And now that I'm learning that from you, whose car was it? Who was it? Who was having the altercation?
So it was Ty Dillon, but I'm with you, Dave, and you and I have watched the race pretty close. I don't recall when this incident happened. I couldn't tell you what lap. I couldn't tell you what stage, but I was rather surprised when I did see this penalty was handed down.
Absolutely.
So with that, David, William Byron's still a young guy. Ty Gibbs, obviously a very young driver, and, doing some things that are uncalled for here. I'm surprised by William Byron because we don't see him show emotion much, hardly ever. But the Ty Gibbs thing, not his first incident, not his first run in, and both these guys are served pretty hefty penalties here. I mean, they won't forget this lesson. They're being served from NASCAR here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You gotta hold your ground. You want to race everybody like they race you, and dude, NASCAR racing is like life, dude. You don't can't let anybody walk over. Walk all over you. Got to stand your ground, and I like the enthusiasm. I like the passion. You know what I mean? I can't sit here and tell you that I disagree with them. But under the circumstances of a championship playoff, trying to advance yourself and get all the points you can, I think William Byron just might have lost his cool. I mean, you can't really, when the caution comes out, spin somebody out. It's just there's going to be some consequences with NASCAR. But for us fans that were watching it, it was exciting. But man, it's hard to balance. It's hard to balance the passion, the desire to win, and your frustrations at the time. It's hard to keep all that in check because there is so much at stake. And kind of interesting. But I think these I call them kids. These kids that are awesome race car drivers. You kind of learn how to handle those situations over time. And, now that the penalties have been handed out, I think if this situation happens to them again moving forward, they'll probably handle it a little bit different. But I can understand why they did it.
Yeah, I get that. So with that, Denny Hamlin here, the enemies list is kind of building for him, isn't it? I mean, we know about Ross Chastain. Now you had William Byron. We're in the playoffs here. Denny's trying to win a championship. Do you still think some payback's coming for those guys too before this is all over?
Hey, potentially. I know him and Ross Chastain, that's been the rivalry of the year, second to none. There could still be some payback there. William Byron now beefing with Denny Hamlin. It seems like he's feuding with a lot of these younger guys. The elder statesmen of the sport, or at least one of the elder statesmen of the Cup Series, is feuding with some of your up-and-coming drivers. It'll be fun to see how this plays out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. Going to be very fascinating to see. What else we got going on, Dom?
Tyler.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, sir. There's so much at stake. Denny's trying to win a championship. Even though to me, what I saw was a racing thing. It was just, man, they were racing hard. Byron thought Denny got into him. I don't think he did. It's hard to kind of retaliate, because when you retaliate, sometimes you jeopardize your team and your own car of damaging it or, wrecking your own car, so, there's a time and place for paybacks. And, sometimes I don't think it's the next race, especially when you're in a playoff contention, trying to win a championship for Denny. He says the list is getting longer of people he owes a payback to. But man, I think you got to stay focused on the task at hand. That's trying to win races and get all the points you can get so you can advance and try to finally win a championship. If that makes any sense, I think it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominic, what else we got? Jimmy Johnson in the news?
Jimmy Johnson in the news. The Associated Press is reporting that Jimmy Johnson will be stepping away from full-time professional racing. It was announced on Tuesday, September 26th. Johnson, the seven-time NASCAR Cup Series champion who took a full-time ride this year with Chip Ganassi Racing in the IndyCar Racing Series, is stepping away from full-time racing. He wants to focus on some bucket list items that can include things like Le Mans, potentially an Indy 500, Coca-Cola 600 double, and whatever he chooses to do, guys, Carvana has given their blessing that they will back him.
That's great. Some of the things that come to mind, David, as far as the schedule, I would think Daytona, Indy Coke doubleheader, maybe even SRX too.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Tyler. But you hate to see. What Jimmy has done in the time he did it in to win 7 championships to match the late great Dale Earnhardt and obviously Richard Petty. It's kind of sad to see him retire from full-time racing. Whether that be IndyCar, NASCAR, or some kind of road racing series. But I would have loved to have seen him come back and drive another year or two in NASCAR with the great team to try to win him his 8th championship. I don't know. I think he's still young enough, and obviously the ability, one of the all-time best. There's not many in the world. There's only 3 of them that have had 7 championships, and it would have been kind of cool to see somebody get 8. And I always thought maybe he's taking a year off or 2 years off of NASCAR, and he'll come back and he'll try it one more time. And to see him retire from full-time competition, I was kind of saddened really today to hear that news. But he deserves to do whatever he wants to do, and obviously got a beautiful family, and from a financial standpoint, I'm sure he's fine for the rest of his life. And but now he's just going to go run cool racing events, and like you said, Tyler, to run the Coca-Cola 6 or the Indianapolis 500, jump on an airplane and fly down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and to compete the I don't know how many miles that is, but challenge that almost impossible task and to successfully achieve it is kind of cool. I only think there's been 4 or 5 people have done that over the years, and but man, I don't know about any of y'all, but I was sad to hear him call it quits on full-time racing.
Yeah, and the thing that I wonder, as far as like teams he could potentially do stuff for, Dom, it seems like that in IndyCar, there's still the Ganassi relationship that Chip says there's always going to be a spot for him no matter what. NASCAR, Trackhouse comes to mind with the Project 91 team. Junior Motorsports has been hinting at some Cup stuff for a while. That would be within the Hendrick family too. What are some potential organizations you could see him potentially partnering with? I mean, in NASCAR, he'll never run the 48 again, but it's hard to imagine him not running a Chevy if he's going to run a NASCAR again.
I feel like that Trackhouse Project 91 is geared more towards foreign drivers and Formula One guys, IndyCar guys, but I think they would make an exception if Justin.
And they said so. Justin Marks said he'd love to have Jimmy.
Absolutely. Justin Marks would absolutely cater to Jimmy Johnson. I think that would be the exception to the rule on that. But I think Trackhouse, maybe Colleague Racing in that All-Star 16 car. Hey, 16, 48 divided into 3 is 16 if we want to get into numbers there. I don't know if that one's a stretch, but I feel like Matt Colleague and what he's building on that Cup side, they look like they're getting stronger and stronger every year. Who's not to say Jimmy Johnson could end up with doing something like that, but I would say it would definitely be with the Chevrolet affiliated team.
And what was real funny, too, was we saw Alex Bowman tweet out that Alex Bowman's World Outlaws team, which is partnered with Ally, of course, a Jimmy Johnson partner as well. He had the joke about that, that Jimmy was going to run World Outlaws, the 92 race schedule. That's not happening, obviously. But, I mean, David, wouldn't that be awesome to see even Jimmy running some dirt races or something?
Man, it'd be kind of cool. It's cool to see Jimmy Johnson racing in anything. It's all, we all tune in and watch him. But man, what one of the all-time best ever to race in NASCAR. Kind of interesting, I'd like to see him in a next-gen race car. I don't think he's ever competed in one, and I'd like to get his opinion, see how he would do. And with the parity that we're having in NASCAR right now, I think maybe this next-gen race car would be more of an advantage or more likely for him to get his 8th championship, with how equal the cars are, and so, a lot of questions I think about in my mind. I'd like for him to test one, race one, just to get his feedback on the new car, the design, how it drives, the aero part of it, stuff like that. But with just the parity's been over the top in 2022 on the NASCAR Cup Series level and all these different winners. I think if Jimmy liked the car and adapted to it, man, I think, I don't think saying that he could possibly win his 8th championship would, I think that would not be surprising to many. I think it would be something that would be possibly a doable deal. So I don't know, a lot of questions. I heard what he said. Kind of cool to see him getting a sprint car, dirt car. There's no telling where you see Jimmy Johnson at. Obviously he's enjoying some semi-retirement and going to go race whatever he wants to race and how he wants to do it. And he deserves to do it however he wants to do it. But, man, for me personally, I was sad to see him retire from full-time competition because I thought he was young enough that he could possibly get that 8th championship in the Cup side, and that's nobody's ever done that.
One more note. We know that Jimmy wants to run, the 24 hours of Le Mans. And Hendrick Motorsports next year, Dom, has that special entry of the next-gen car that they're working on NASCAR with. I would have to think that special entry is going to be one or two drivers. It's either going to be Jimmy Johnson or it's going to be Jeff Gordon, more than likely.
Absolutely. I know Jeff Gordon's name has been thrown around for that. Who's not to say Jimmy Johnson's name would be thrown around for that and cross off one of those things off the bucket list. He did say, too, the paper's blank. He's got options, and he's going to see what he can pencil on the calendar. Maybe that gets filled in 2023.
Either way, that's a win-win for NASCAR fans if it's one of those two.
Absolutely.
I would even – I don't think Dale Jr. would do it, but if Dale wanted to, that'd be great too. If it's one of those three, that would be awesome for NASCAR. Talladega picks real quick. Let's go around the room. David, are you picking Kevin Harvick or somebody else this week?
Man, it's hard to pick anybody. It's hard it's hard. I'm gonna step out there because this guy's a great super speedway racer. He's just a great overall racer. He's fighting for his first championship, and I'm gonna say Denny Hamlin gets it done at Talladega.
Ooh, the two-time winner at Talladega. Man, so many good guys you can pick. I've heard like these races, you could throw all 40 car numbers into a hat, you draw a number, and that's your winner. It really feels like that, especially this year in the parity. However, I think we are going to see one of your top teams win on Sunday, and I think Austin Cindric gets his second win and takes his second Cup Series win. He'll do that at Talladega Sunday. Tyler, who's it going to be?
Ryan Blaney is not going winless this year. He's really good on plate tracks. I'll go with Ryan Blaney to get it done at Talladega this weekend. That is our news and notes segment, as well as our picks this week here on Let's Go Racing. Let's Go Racing with David Starr, presented by TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter came aboard as the primary sponsor this year on David's 08 Ford Mustang. We want to tell you a little bit more about what they do. TicketSmarter is a national ticket resale marketplace with tickets to over 125,000 live events, including NASCAR and other forms of motorsports. Fans can get tickets to every NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Camping World Truck Race throughout the season. For the best deals on tickets, visit TicketSmarter.com to get your tickets today. That's TicketSmarter.com. David, let's go ahead and get to our Ask David segment, where you guys submit questions to us via email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/starpodcast, Twitter @starpodcast. And our first question in the inbox this week is for David. And Becky writes, David, who is an athlete in another sport that you believe, had they trained for it, could have been a good race car driver?
Wow, that's a great question, man. Man, that's a great question. I got to think about that for a minute.
Well, David, go
ahead.
I'm
David. Thinking about that. Dominic, throw your opinion in there.
Man, I was actually going to bring up the name. I heard this on the Dale Jr. download a couple of years ago with Darrell Waltrip, and when he was having his issues at Dyegard Racing, they were thinking of bringing in Bruce Jenner to run some Cup races and take over Darrell Waltrip's ride there. That's one athlete I could think of from back in the day that maybe could have had some cross-training into doing that. Maybe somebody in the NFL. I don't know, Dave. The Bruce Jenner one was fascinating because I remember hearing that in relation to Darrell Waltrip on how that was a serious consideration for him to run that car full time, I believe in 80 or 81.
Man, that's very interesting. That's a great question, and man, just offhand, I don't have an answer for you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of athletes, superstars of the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, that have a lot of interest in fast cars. One of that comes to mind years ago when I was just first getting into NASCAR with the professional drag racing team, Rear Morrison. They were building a lot of engines for the Pudge Rodriguez, the catcher of the Texas Rangers forever, and man, he was a big avid car guy. He loved NASCAR racing, and man, I always thought it was interesting how much he liked racing, and there's a lot of other athletes and other sports that really love, obviously drag racing, NASCAR, IndyCar type of racing, but to be able to pick one right off my, just think of somebody. I can't really think of anybody but Pudge.
David, what comes to mind for me is, racing is a lot about how quick your mind can move and instinct, right? I think of quarterbacks in football, of maybe it's not even necessarily the arm strength that they have, but their mind of how they control the offense and what they can see is ahead of them. We talk about race car drivers dodging wrecks and try to put themselves in the best position. I think quarterbacks, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, those guys, I think they would, had they trained for it, they would have the instinct of like a race car driver.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you big time, and, that's with everything, how quick they got to make decisions and how they study the defense and change plays up and the strategy and just, their eye-hand coordination, how accurate they are. I mean, no doubt about it. They trained, I think you could see, some of these superstar quarterbacks in the NFL be great race car drivers because of, the abilities they have and the athleticism they have already to play the position they play. I think you're spot on, Tyler.
I like that question. Thanks for the
great question. Great question.
Thank you, Becky, for that question there. Next one in the inbox comes from Choo Choo. Choo Choo wants to know, David, have you ever gotten to design any of your NASCAR paint schemes, whether the entire car or parts?
Man, I've really never designed, that's kind of not my forte, but I have just had a blank white or black race car that I just added decals on, and kind of with the permission from the partners that were going to be on the race car to kind of change their color scheme a little bit so the car would kind of flow. I've been involved in that, but there's not one that stands out in my mind that I helped design. I've had some great looking race cars over the years, great partners, but I haven't really been involved in design of it, so that's a great question. And, I'm not really involved in the designs of the different sponsors we have. They work with professionals. There's people in our industry that are really good at making the sponsor, their name pop out of these cars, the way these cars look, the colors they use, and especially when you're racing underneath the lights at night. But I have not really been a part of that process, and it's always cool to see the renderings when they finish the final design and you finally see what they came up with. You're like, man, that's awesome, but no, I don't really take part in that part of it, which is is one of the coolest things for not only me, other competitors and other racing teams to see how it all turns out.
What's been some of your favorite paint schemes you've had, David?
Oh man, there's been so many. So many. Obviously Whataburger, the Brett Baer special report car. It's just, my Chasco race cars over the years. When I drove for Spears Manufacturing, those were cool looking race trucks. We just had a great sponsor, Good Boy Vodka, a couple weeks ago at Bristol. That car looked great. When I did a throwback to AJ Foyt, I thought that was a cool looking race car. I mean, there's just been so many that have been just, to me, outstanding. They look great. They look fast. And man, the fans have liked them, you know what I mean? So, but those are some that come to mind.
Dom, an iconic paint scheme just goes a long way. Off the top of my head, I think of, Jeff Gordon's Flames car and the Rainbow Warrior car. I think everybody forgets his AARP car. Dale Earnhardt black number 3 Goodwrench, the Petty blue STP car, the Dale Jr. red Budweiser car, and probably the orange Tony 20 Home Depot car. Those are the ones that come to mind of iconic. I mean, those they go a long way in the association of a NASCAR driver and their fan base and creating an identity.
Well, I'm going to be the oddball here, and I do agree with you. Some of those paint schemes, they are just going to live forever on in NASCAR. This one has always done it for me. The 1998 Phillips Ford that Jeff Bodine drove. And granted, right, you guys know I'm close with Jeff Bodine, but even before that, before I knew him, when I was a 5-6-year-old boy playing NASCAR 99 on the PlayStation, I always drove that car. And that's the car that really got me hooked on NASCAR, raced it any chance I got. I even have a 124 scale of that car at my desk. And I really enjoy that. People ask me, oh, what's this car? And I love discussing it and giving the backstory on it. For me, it's that car.
Tyler, how do we know? We could have guessed that one easily.
Yeah. That was the low-hanging fruit for Dominic. David, what's been some of, besides yourself, of other drivers, and whether it was guys you grew up watching or maybe even some of these that stand out now, what are some of your favorite paint schemes?
Man, just, obviously Richard Petty, that 43 STP car. I mean, over the years, a kid growing up watching NASCAR, some of Terry Labonte's iconic colors, with Kellogg's and Frosted Flakes. And, the Dale Earnhardt one comes to mind. Jeff Gordon, the Rainbow Color Warriors car. Let's see here. Those are some that just come to my mind right off the bat, but man, the ones you mentioned earlier, Tyler, just, been amazing. Dale Earnhardt, not Darrell Waltrip when he had Western Auto and some of those chrome looking cars that you really ever saw chrome, and those things were kind of iconic, and they were good looking with bright orange and chrome. And man, those cars are very iconic for a while with Darrell Waltrip. And, you think about Junior Johnson and the Billy Elliott number 9, the Melling Ford Mustang that Bill drove and won all those races with. There's just been so many over the years. It's hard to remember all of them.
Yeah, and the fans, they become fans of not only just the driver, but the product they're selling too. I mean, I'll be honest now, next year, whether he was going to stay at Gibbs or not, it's going to be weird just seeing Kyle Busch not driving the M&M's 18 car. We knew that the sponsor was going to change no matter what, but just the fact that M&M's isn't going to be around, I mean, the two over this last decade plus have become synonymous with each other.
Couldn't agree more with that. Those iconic, that yellow with the blue and the red and the green M&Ms, and just all the Mars paint schemes too. I'd go beyond that and say the Skittles car. Having Skittles a part of the sport since the 1990s, like the Ernie Irvan paint schemes, the M&M's car dating back to Ken Schrader, Elliott Sadler. It really is the end of an era. It's really sad to see that that's going to go. And again, I think those paint schemes will definitely live on in our sport for years to come. We'll see images and video, and they're going to show back some past NASCAR races when they start showing promos for next year's races. We're still going to see that 18 car in that. And man, the Interstate Batteries car too, Dave and Tyler, I would say is another iconic one. When you think back to Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, J.J. Ailey, and Kyle Busch running that car, definitely that iconic 18, bright green with the red numbering of the 18.
Yeah, and I would say too, one thing I think that we learned from Dale Jarrett, David, at the end of his career when he wasn't winning a whole lot, I mean, he and UPS were still a great partnership. Michael Waltrip with Napa, that was a great partnership. You don't have to be winning races even to have a good thing going with these partners and these paint schemes. It's about, relating to your fans on and off the track.
Man, you hit it right on you hit the nail right on the head, man. When you think about the big brown truck, man, I remember.
Oh yeah.
UPS. You think of UPS, you think of Del Jarrett. I still look at the Interstate Batteries car and think of Bobby Labonte. When I see Tide at the local grocery store, when I see that Tide box, I think of Ricky Rudd. Just some products go with certain drivers. Man, they last a lifetime. You can't. You just think about that. When you see GM anything, that black logo has got blue in it, you see that GM, I think of Dale Earnhardt, those were some cool ones, but man, I can't help when I go into, when I see another one that comes to mind, Coors Light, people drinking Coors Light, who do you guys think of? Sterling Marlin,
Yeah.
So pretty
Those
cool
mountains
stuff.
running along the side of the paint scheme, especially in the Chip Ganassi days and the Dodge days. That silver bullet car, man, it's one of the more iconic ones of the mid 2000s.
I loved it, Dom, when I think it was our first visit to Daytona, or it was first or second visit, and we met up with Sterling Marlin's family. Sterling wasn't there, but the only beer was Coors Light. I mean, that was all that we were going to have with the Marlin family.
Big time. Big time. It was his wife and I believe maybe daughters-in-law. There was some family, extended Marlin family there at that dinner that night.
That's all they were drinking.
That's all there was. And you have to keep in mind, Coors had not been sponsoring him for almost 20 years at that point, and they were still loyal to the brand.
Right. And it's a great story. I love it. It's terrific just to see that loyalty. I mean, Lowe's, they didn't finish with Jimmy Johnson at the end of his NASCAR career, but I think they probably came away with that, Dom, saying, you know what, I think Jimmy Johnson's probably made Lowe's a lot of money over the years. I would guess that Jimmy probably doesn't have to pay for anything still when he goes into Lowe's.
I would imagine so. And heck, they got their money's worth. They got out of the sport. But yes, it was a great partnership. That's another iconic paint scheme, Lowe's and Jimmy Johnson over the years. And just backtracking a couple steps here, I did get word from somebody, I won't name them, but a source close to the Marlin family said as of a few years ago, Marlin was still getting free Coors Light all these years later.
Well, I would hope so, man.
You have to imagine Jimmy Johnson's got like a charge card at Lowe's.
Right.
Well, I think, they played a major part in, I don't think, when Jimmy Johnson goes to Lowe's, I don't think, shopping for the best price is on his agenda. I think he just goes there and gets what he wants and pays for it. Whether they pay for it or not, they helped him get to the point where it don't matter what it costs, he's buying it. You know what I'm saying?
I heard speaking of that, not to get too off track, but along those same lines, Regis Philbin. Everybody knows Regis, iconic television host. I heard this story the other day. He passed away a couple years ago, but in the last 20 years of his life, he ended up somehow getting this free McDonald's for life card, and which was very rare. They didn't hardly give them out. And he would show up at McDonald's and would try to use the free McDonald's for life card. And the cashiers would be like, what the hell is this? What are we supposed to do? And they'd have to go grab their manager or whatever. And so he tried using it all the time, but it wasn't worth it for how much time it would take people trying to figure out it was real. So he would just go ahead and pay for his Big Mac or whatever. And he'd be trying to use it for like a Big Mac and a Coke, not for like a large order or something. So even celebrities trying to find the deals like us. So fun show today, guys. Appreciate the listeners for joining us as well. Before we go, real quick around the room, what's going on this week? David, you're about to head to Talladega.
Man, about to head to Talladega here in a couple of days. It's hanging out with my family and doing a little stuff at Team Texas, and just excited about the races this weekend, and just watching the news like everybody to see where this hurricane is going to finally hit the United States. And just hopefully it's not too bad, but definitely an exciting weekend going into Talladega.
Dom, how about you?
Man, so I'm going to be heading back to the East Coast this weekend. One of my best friends, Matt Corson, is tying the knot with his fiance, Maddie, and looking forward to being out there with Jonathan Field. And then we're going to take a little detour on the way back to the airport to Atlanta. We're going to stop at Talladega on Sunday to cover the Cup race and the action there. And hopefully everything gets in this weekend. All our thoughts, I think I speak for David and Tyler when I say this, our thoughts and prayers with everybody that's going to be affected with Hurricane Ian over the next few days. And we hope whatever happens, everything's minimal and nobody gets hurt and people stay out of the path of that hurricane.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
What about you, Tyler? What's going on, man?
I'm going to Waco on Saturday. Going to go watch that Oklahoma State Baylor game, and maybe I'll stop in and see Chip and Joanna at Magnolia while I'm down there too.
You have to get some coffee down there. It's a cool little place. You'll like it.
Yeah.
Hey, are you still on your Summer of Jones tour? I thought we canceled
No.
it.
Summer's over. It's over.
Yeah, David, it's the fall of Jones now.
No. We're not taking any falls around here. No. Summer Jones will return in next year, Memorial Day weekend. But in the meantime, I'll continue to live it up. It's great to see you boys this weekend, and we had a great time. And my dad was out there too and just loved it. And so many great faces, so many you listeners we ran into over the last couple of days too. It was a lot of fun, and we'll look forward to being at the track again. Dominic will be out there this weekend. David will too.
Hey, we gotta thank Mark Tate, man. Mark Tate,
Mark,
T-top manufacturing. Just Mark, man, what he does for all our other sponsors, partners, our family members, and just our friends. Mark always has an open door policy for us, and man, we just, it really, it's much bigger than a thank you, because he does a lot for us, doesn't he?
I honestly wonder sometimes, David, what would we do without Mark?
How did we make it without Mark before we met Mark? You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, and that friendliness and the hospitality, he and his wife, Carrie, they do such an amazing job, and just year round, they're all around great people and always a pleasure. They are some of the nicest people I've met on the NASCAR circuit. And David, I will tell you, they were always a shining light heading to Texas Motor Speedway. Always enjoy catching up with Mark and Carrie.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, they're the absolute best. We thank them, and thank you guys for joining us here on Let's Go Racing this week. As always, you can subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every Wednesday, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. And hit that like button as well. Check us out social media, facebook.com/Star Podcast, Twitter @Star Podcast, and by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. For David Starr, Dominic Aragon, I'm Tyler Jones. Put the checkered flag out on this episode. We'll see you next week here on Let's Go Racing. So long, everybody.